journalist and architect, obtained a PhD in architectural and environmental technology, and a master in urban planning and environment. He is a Beijing University of Civil Engineering and Architecture distinguished expert and associate professor in architectural technology and environmental design at the Polytechnico di Milano Architecture and Urban Study Department. He is also a visiting professor at European, American, and Asian universities. Fabrius focuses on research related to contemporary building environment, resilient and sustainable cities, and landscape metabolism. He's editor and scientific referee of various university publications. Fabrius has written several books and essays about the above subjects and served as a specialized journal reviewer. So today, he's gonna bring us a lecture about an outlook from Europe on sustainable and resilient cities, what we learned, and future strategies. All right, Professor Fabrius, and now it's your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chi, for the introduction. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much also, of course, to BUCEA University, BUCEA, and ISPRS to have invited me here. It's very, really, I mean, to me, it's the first day of vacation here in Italy, and really is a good time to spend with you this afternoon for me and your early night for you together. So just to thing, I started to, one moment, okay, here we are, and you should see anything, I hope. And
Yeah.
on the other side, I just, one moment, last click, and then we can go here. Okay. Yes, I see.
Right.
I see
Looks
everything.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope.
Perfect.
So here I am. So as I said to you, thank you so much. I'm talking from Italy, northern Italy, where really is a torrid climate, and so really it's so funny because when I sent to BUCEA and to the organizers this lecture, this title, and so on, I was thinking about something. Then in these last 2 weeks was really, here we are spending all the days at 40 degrees. It's quite impossible to live, more or less. There are fires, other things, and so on. So really, I changed a little bit this thing, but really also because I've seen what my colleagues will teach, or just really with just talk after. So I think that I just, maybe because I'm old, I don't know. Really, I was thinking that we could do some other kind of introduction. So first of all, thank you so much for the communications, because I know that Zoom is a US company, but really this is, I know that this is, you know better than me what it is, but really it's just that how much is precious in this moment after the pandemics, but also because really we have changed all the way to think even about how to communicate and so on. So thank you so much to this kind of technologies, and also because an institute like yours that is really about telemetry and other things and so on really are these kind of things, so made for real. So I don't want to talk about supernature just like this. So if this is more or less is artificial, because this is a field, but really is cultivated to be like this. I don't want even to talk about resilience in this way. So really, what we can do with the things that they are broken, or just they are just pass away from their life and so on, even if they can be something good. What I'm doing in Milan, I'm an architect, as you have said, and so on, and I teach progettazione ambientale in Italian. I like to say it because to me it sounds very, very well. In English is environmental design, and this is really the thing that I hope to talk today for you, because really it's something that is just the same thing. Because at the end, what is just that if we manage to do very well a project with keeping in mind the environment, and so really keeping in a different way the design, not only technological, but also putting together all these things that now are called also the resilience method, and so on. Really, we can create also landscapes like this. Where it is something artificial. There is architecture on one side. There is people that on the other side play to be natural in something that really is artificial and so on. Maybe this is our new future, because nature, more or less, is very, very different from environment. Nature could live alone, mean really that the humankind could be apart, and really we got the nature that is just there, and on the other side we got the environment that really something that is always our perception of what we have around. So a place like this that is completely artificial could be seems something that is natural, but really is not natural at all. Really, because I think that I have just seen in the last 2 weeks here in Italy, I've done the course, sorry, the exams for my courses. We have the final juries and so on. I think that really for the young generation, because I'm more than 50 years old and so on, and really I think that now we have just to come back a little bit every time to see what are from where the things are started, and sometimes it's really maybe seems that it's not shoes, maybe it seems that are only notions, but really it's very important to me understand where a story is started, and more or less it's just this, because now we are talking, all of us, we are talking about Anthropocene and other things and so on, but really the first things we're starting from here. And also what is the notion of environment, if it's something that is putting together the mineral things, the human artifacts and so on. And really we know all now that we are living inside this kind of anthroposphere that is really in this future present, in this present is became Anthropocene, and all these things are interconnected. Then there was other passages, because in the years there were a kind of everything is just changing. It's something that this first part of this lecture is about how the things are changed, and also the nominal things are changed. So because the Vernadsky, when it started, was just putting together the environment and the geosphere, so something that is there, then the biosphere that is more or less us, taking something that was coming from past like this, so in 1885, and the noosphere, that means really what is inside our brain, so our ideas, that is something that now we are really working, all of us, with the intelligent things are this. This is just the artificial mind that is going on another side. Then something that really at the end is, to me, is you can read these things and maybe you can take I think that is also the lecture will be there forever, so I don't want really to pass through this, but really at the end, to me, is very interesting that in 1968, so very close to us, more or less, less than 50 years ago, Adrian Milson was just thinking about technosphere, biosphere, and sociosphere. And this is really are the three things in the while we are just moving us. Because if we see just this kind of stamps, but really these kind of pictures that are taken in the British environment, but really there's no space now that really can be a natural landscape. The landscapes are always, and means also the planet, has always seen someone, a man. The mankind arrived there and just changed a little bit. On the other side, it's just also what is ecology. Ecology is related to environment, is something that is collateral and so on. Also this is just not only a way of thinking, because there is the ecology as a movement, but there is also ecology as really a very practical thing. Was invented by, because really he was the first one to use this term. Henkel is 1866, so 100 years before that I was born, and he put together these two things: ecos, that means home in ancient Greek, and logia on the other side, that means really the law, the norm, what is really the possibility to do these things. Putting together, this is just the ecology, means all the things related to my space, to my niche, to my home, and so on. So really is another time related with us, that we are living in a place, and what we can do. We have really to pass through the space. And here it is, something that I think that all of you know, that is very important, because we talk also about sustainability. Sustainability is a term that really was created, invented in a precise document, but really as this was taken, there were some rules that were coming back to a philosophy and a philosopher, Hans Jonas, because he died in USA and became an American. But really, in this thing, you can see here the translation from German to English. In the middle there is Italian, but really that there is all the meaning of what we now say that is sustainability. And really, there was no one before the 1987. There was only Hans Jonas, but in another way, that was saying what is sustainability and how much is important. Now I think that the young generations, I mean, all the students maybe that are just doing now the masters and so on, 20 years old, 25 years old, maximum, I think, that really sometimes they really think that is granted to think about the next generations. To me, when we started to think about this in the 90s, really was something that was really new and was something that was really, I don't know, as a kind of revelation. I have to do the things because I have to think about who is arriving next and so on. And really, I don't know why, but I think that really in the last years, in the last 20 years, everyone has just a little lost this consideration about the future generation because we are doing only a lot of harm to our planet. So, because more or less is just, I don't know, we want really to arrive to live in a place like this and think about it. Really, this is a place that now if you go to Gross Ration, you can find in this place a beautiful lake. So really everything can be solved, everything can be done because now we got a lot of good technologies, simple technologies, and good techniques to arrive to solve problems like this. But really, we have really to act well. We have really to do the things well. So, resilience, what it is something that is very, very funny. I mean, to me, was just enough to think about sustainability before, and then this sustainability has moved and this became resilience. I think that you know that the term is coming another time, just like sustainability is the same, always from a Latin verb, a Latin word, in this case a verb, resilire. That means to bounce, or really what I like more is just jump back. So something is arriving against me, is just pushing me, it just, I don't know, make me hard. I don't know, it's something that is really pushing me, but I got some superpowers, really. I have really a kind of very, very tranquil power, and I really, in time, I can come again to my perfect condition. This is resilient. And really, what I've written here about me, myself, because I did some kind of research, because now we find, I mean, I don't know what happens in China and other parts in the world, but really, I can assure you that in Europe, resilience is everywhere, even in the advertising, in all the popular magazines and so on. Resilience is everywhere. It's just like the jam. You can find this over the bread. But really, it's something that we are using in these terms because also resilience was coming first from physics, then from psychology and so on. But really, at the end, is really in the last less than 20 years that we are talking about. And really, to me, it happened that I was in Uppsala, that is in Sweden, and with some colleagues of landscape architecture, we were eating a piece of salmon, and this guy started to talk to me, do you know what is resilience? And so on. And so really, and after a little bit of explication, I said, okay, but it's just another way to say sustainability. There's not so much difference, there's a slight difference. But always is this, the problem is when we do something to the territory, to the environment, to ourselves, because at the end it's always an act against ourselves, and we reduce, or generally we combine the environment in this way, what we can do to come back and do something better than this. Okay, we have to talk so every time about environment. Environment is something that is connected to ecology, is connected to sustainability, is connected to resilience. All these terms are really different in time, so they started to be used in different times. This is the more recent. And now what happens? This is something that your generation, the next generation, have to decide. If we want to talk about another time about the green city, that is a term that more or less is just a little bit past, is just a little bit out, I don't know to say, but really is still valid. Or the sponge city, that is something that the audience that is coming from China, you know very, very well what it is. I discover as it was really thought from the Chinese when I was the first time in China, more or less is more than 10 years ago now, but really is something that really in the western part we are doing this. Maybe we don't call them sponge city and so on, but really is something that we share in common. Or really this is another solution that we can find. So really use the circular economy. So really our projects can be part of something that is just coming around, and so I don't know, what I invest in one piece is not really one-time use, is really something that I can use again and so on. This is also resilience, because really it's something that I really can afford in a long time, and so really can use more time. Or just, this is a problem, after the pandemic we discovered this, that really is another meaning of the city. So the city that have to be lived in a distance of 15 minutes. 15 minutes from where? From home. This is funny because more or less in Europe at least is something that this was to coming back to a kind of condition that was even before the Second World War, let's say, or maybe also from the first. It was more than 100 years that more or less we could live in the 15-minute city. The funny thing was just that after the 50s we were really arrogant, so really we destroy the cities with the 15 minutes rule, and now we have to coming back to reinvent them. But really, also this is just another label to something that was a little bit old as a meaning, but really that could be new because it was forgotten. So there are a lot of things that we have forgot in the last years. Or also, this is something we are all talking about, nature-based solutions. So really, what are the natural-based solutions? It's just to use nature to find solutions. Sponge City is one of these, an example. We talk more about nature-based solution. In other places, they are talking about other words that are with the same meaning. Or also adaptation, what I can do in a city to adapt to the general conditions that are becoming different, and this could be not only from climate and so on, but also from economic point of view, from a logistic point of view, from a lot of points of view that all the mankind is very, very good in creating. Or mitigation, how I can mitigate. If I cannot adapt, I cannot mitigate. What are the difference between these two things? Or also the way to do a kind of recuperation of what I've lost another time. Sometimes really we have forgot the rules of the things that the ancients were doing, and when we start to study we discover that oh my god, that is I've done the best solution without any kind of technology, or maybe using a very good technology that is not ours, and maybe we have forgot really how to do. So it's a kind of reappropriation, also the reappropriation of the spaces, because sometimes it's just that in our cities we have really lost the frequency or just the use of some spaces. Is all an history that is open with a lot of under developing, because we are talking about climate change. To me is the climate changed, because really now it's quite impossible to say that we are in the middle of climate changing. The climate has changed, and maybe it's changed worse from in the next future and so on. I mean, now really with the super warm that we got and so on, is really clear when the sea is arriving at 30 degrees, there is something is boiling. So there is something that really says to you, it's not like 20 years ago. So really we are in the middle of this thing. We have no excuse to not take any kind of procedure to arrive to something different, or just to try to help nature to come back. Or just smart city. What is the smart city? Also this is something that is still here, is always something that is generated by man. How the city can work better using the smart technologies. Are the smart technologies so intelligent to change our life and so on? What are really the products, or what are the the material. So what are the connections between something that is really is inanimate and us. And other problem that really we got and really in Europe at the moment is really felt is just that the city and the problem of gender. So really how city can change. In Milan, really, this is something that is really started and is giving a lot of, new ideas also to use spaces inside the cities and so on. And then, of course, this is just a super problem that we are starting to talk no more than 3 years ago. Seems that it's passed so much time, but really, what are the post-pandemic communities? Really, here we can also write post-pandemic world because, and also we are sure that we are in a post-pandemic, or maybe really we have to play an adaptation to find a mitigation about this thing here. So you see, also playing with these words came out that really is not possible to find one solution, but all the solutions are always related one with the other, and so on. That is something that I think I have to say that as an architect, more or less is something that we have clear, because architecture is one of the few things that is a subject that is put in the middle between art and techniques. So in one side seems to be engineering, and on the other side seems to be Beaux-Arts or just painting, other thing, and so on. So really, it's just a mix. No? So it's something. The important thing is just that we have to understand in which kind of boundary what is our thing. As I said, now really I can say that this to me is the world. It's not more my region, my city, my place, because maybe you didn't have read the books by Carson or so on, but really this myth that the butterfly is just flapping on one side and something else is happening on the other side of the world, I think that now is more than clear that is real. So it's something that really we have to decide. We can afford this, we cannot afford what is. So really, what is the boundary of our plan? First of all, is just that is most important also how we use our time and how we use our technologies, but also how we really act. So really in these times that are American, so think about American steps of more or less 10 years ago and so on, and we know all how much America have still, I'm talking as an European, they have still to do for the environment. We all hope that they embrace, and seems that they have embraced it very, very well, this kind of idea, but really the little things that anyone can do are here, no? But really, if anyone does, sorry, even a little thing, everything is precious. Okay, another thing. When we do some projects, we are going against the environment. The funny thing is always that the project is something that really we do, and the environment is something that we live and we perceive. This is just because nature is something that is there. Environment is something that we create and we can just change and so on. Think about another time stamps. Sorry, I'm a maniac of stamps, but really it's just in this place here we got 1, 2, 3, and you see what happens. That really what is natural, we know for sure that is not so natural no more, because really even when it seems that it's natural, one man has passed from there for sure, even only to do the picture. Then in agriculture, what we have done to our territories doing agriculture, and the agriculture that is became over and over a factor of quantity of hectares of kilometers, square kilometers, ton of square kilometers, just prepare for the harvest and so on. And what we have done from the urban point of view. So what we have done to our environment, doing what? Because what we are doing project, and this is something that I would like to share with you. Is just that always in just getting inside the root of the meaning of just this word is just that. I hope that you see also my mouse moving. Sorry. Projectum here, that is this. This is slating, and you see that it's very, very similar, because project is coming from French, is going to English, but it is maintained this thing. Also in Italian we say progetto, so it's very, very close. But really, these things, this word, this verb means that I do with my mind, I got an idea that I can project, so really that I can put this in front of me, very in front of me, because I know that is the future. So it's something that I can develop in the future. And this means really that when we do projects, we are thinking something that should be good because is full of hopes. If we really do a project to do something bad, it means that we have lose all the hopes. So really, this is simple to say that really when you do a project, you are always with in your heart some hope to be developed. And on the other side, we have to keep in mind where we are. And we are in this thing that is called environment. Here you see in a lot of some of the Western languages. This is German, Umwelt, that is another story. And this is in Chinese. Sorry, I don't risk to to pronounce that, but really I've seen that more or less it's just the same, because the translation by Google, of course, is just that saying that is something that is just around me. So really, that is our meaning, because I'm here and what is around is my environment. So really, it's something that I really have to take care about. And that's why we are talking about the built environment that is now in an ecological crisis. This ecological crisis, if you go back to see what happened, or just when also this term was started, it started in the 90s and so on. And really, after that, we find a lot of solutions. We got the solutions, because to me, can I say that I'm angry? I'm very angry, because we got in our hands all the solutions to do everything, and seems really that we want to not to arrive to a good solution. So really, this problem of a project that is not arriving to a good solution, giving open. So environment and landscape. Landscape, another time, how it's said in different languages from the Western point of view. You see, there is the Latin, the first three, the four are coming from the ancient German, and then in Chinese. But more or less, the importance of this is just that the landscape is something that is always there, but is changed by our perception. And landscape, if you think that in landscape can be put together land, territory, all the things that we plan and so on, means that all what we do as humankind is always related to this thing. And so all the things that we do are over this. This is just a kind of super infrastructure. So really, the world is our infrastructure, and we got only this one, so it's the ultimate. That's why sometimes we should be thought 1, 2, 3, 10 times before acting or just doing anything. Because the important thing is just to find the way to connect what is natural with something that is not, that could be a kind of infrastructure inside another infrastructure, and so to find a kind of equilibrium. This is just a bicycle route. Okay, so I know that this is not European, but really, because to me it's very important to start from this, because in the history, now the story that I want really to tell to you very quick now, okay, yes, I'm right in time, I just taken my time, is just that the importance in our cities about the brownfields or the direct lands of the post. Because now I think that another thing that I think that all of you should agree with me is just that we are living in a moment that is post of everything. Before was just post industrial. Now we are post a lot of things, because post pandemic, inside of post war, post problems, post crisis, post this, post that. There is post for everything. So we have just to find a way to come out from post. But really, in our cities, where are coming out the best change, or really where is coming this kind of strategic resilience? Really, from the places that in the 80s we really never thought it was possible to find a new kind of equilibrium and so on. So are all these places where there was one activity that was just closed, that was just forgot, maybe 20 years, 30 years without use and so on, and then a kind of, you see another time, these terms that are coming back, a kind of recycling, a kind of recycle of the things, and so new activities, new ideas, and from this also the restarting of all the community that is around. So this is just Richard Hagan Associates in Seattle, and I always put this, even if it's not in Europe, of course, it's just because this was one of the first, to me really is the first place where we use bioremediation to really recreate a park from a place that was super polluted and so on. The idea was very, very simple, just recreate a simple park, just done with this meadow that is no more than grass or something like this, also because you cannot plant here any kind of trees and so on, but really they had a spot new from the city. From the other point of view, in Europe there were Paris had the super fortune to have some spots that were post-industrial use, but not only. This post really in Europe is post-industrial, but is also post-agriculture, is really post-activities and post-living, and really are only places where something has really dismissed, something where there is no more use as it was before. So this is the Parc de la Villette, that is also important because the most part of you maybe are not really super related with architecture. For sure, it's just that we architects, we are thinking to be related to anyone, but really I've seen that all the people that the organizers have invited, really, I think that can give you this idea how much is useful to really talk in the middle of the subjects. There is no major, we are all really sharing the same word, so the solutions are always there to be seen. But because you are talking also about the consortium of students, and is talking about photogrammetry and so on, and so also computer-aided design, scanning, and so on. Remember always that Parc de la Villette is the first time that a drawing in architecture, but really I think that really for a lot of other things, was just designed by lines, points, and surfaces. So these are 3 layers in one to obtain this. And this is AutoCAD, is really CAD, is like the way that now all the people is drawing architecture, and not only and so on, but really this was the first time that was applied and was really a revolution. I was a student of architecture, and this was beloved or hated, but really at the time was really the point of no return for a lot of things. And this is just the result, because this is a park that was said that was not possible to become a real park used by the people and so on, and now is one of the most successful things that there are in Paris by the architect is Bernard Chaumy. This is Claes Oldenburg, that you know that is dead some days ago. And then another city that for us was really, really important in this kind of history of this kind of slow revolution inside the city was Barcelona. Barcelona really developed a plan that was super strategic, because it was done by very, very little points and transform inside the city and so on. Is something that now we call acupuncture, or just these little points that are that they come to another life. But really, to me, the most important, also because it's related really with the transformation of another place that was without any kind of use, is the Parc de Poblenou. That really is this, where for the first time also here landscape architects and architects have thought about a park that was not really, was no more super landscape, so it was not a landscape super design, was not super controlled, I don't know how to say, but really it was not the park that the people at the time was expecting. And on the other side, also architects that really were playing with the things that were there, just putting together 2 or 3 things here in this. Sorry for the lower quality of these pictures, but really it's just that in this place here, all these dunes and so on are covering railway tracks, other things and so on. So a lot of things that were there, they were maintained, just covered and so on, giving the idea to be in a place that is more natural of what it was. But really this place was also saving in a very, very clever way a lot of things that were very difficult to move in some other places and so on. So this was a little bit, you see also here, there is just a ship that is just put down into the sand and so on. So really, it's just a beautiful way to change the perception on how to do landscape, how to do and how to recreate the city. This now is one of the super points of Barcelona, and also where there is this tower in the background is just really started, because now here you find the super towers by Jean Nouvel and so on. So really this is the second half, let's say, of Barcelona, the new one. Then there was another thing that was very, very important for all of us. I mean, when we are talking about environmental design, there was the Hampshire Park. The Hampshire Park was just a region, 800 square kilometers, starting also here from the reuse or just inventing new ways to use these abandoned places, just like industrials like this, to make them a place for leisure, where there are also control of the rainwaters. This is just all the basins for the rainwater and so on. Reuse or very not reuse at all of the of the railways. Recreate from the scratch, really, some ideas of new kinds of landscape, new kind of housing, a little bit sustainable houses for the time, ecological was called at the time, or just also to recreate the environment in a better way, or just sometimes having great ideas only to send messages when you cannot do really nothing. And also this, because at the end, Hampshire Park is still now famous because the people that was doing, they organized this thing, they've invented this thing that is Industrie Natur. This is German, but really it's very simple to be translated. This is the nature that is in the industry, because the most part of the places that were reusing were stopped since 20, 40, 30 years and so on. So the nature was there, so there was not the problem of what I have to invent to call the nature here. They really said the nature is arrived here. So how can I change the mentality of the people to accept that this place is here with this kind of landscape that is really supernatural, could be a good place where to go. And they managed to do this, and this became a kind of fashion. Another thing that is important, when you try and disseminate your ideas, and they became fashion, because this means that they're very, very powerful. This is just the Millennium Dome, Greenwich Millennium Dome in London for the 2000. And so here, this is just by Devine Dalnouki. For the landscape architects, I think that is something very, very simple to be understood. It's just that all the plans that you do with the nature, with the plants in this case, is really that they grow with the time, so really they change in time, and you have really to be prepared to understand how it evolves in the time. It's not an architecture that stays there forever. This is really, the green architecture is really exploding. And at the time, also in London, was done this thing that was called BUCEA, that was really one of the first attempts really to create a village where everything was recycled, 0 kilometers and so on, with a lot of ideas that were so good that they didn't find a replica. This is just another story, but really is there, is still functioning, and really is really a kind of, I don't know, to me is an example that is very, very good, because was functioning, maybe functioning even too much. You can see solar panels, other things and so on. At the same time, in Stockholm, there was done even here from a place that was completely abandoned. This was just all places for all the industries and so on, that they have just to leave the center of the city, because we are very, very close to the center of the city. It was invented Hammer by Schierstedt. That really is, Schierstedt means the city around the lake, and Hammerby is just the place. But really, this is the result. All this community was a green community with a lot of recycling methods inside. So recycling of the water, recycling of the garbage, the spaces and so on. So really was something that have created a kind of very strong community in a place where there was not. And really was also this was functioning, not so well functioning as was planned and so on, because also a lot of theories, when they are on the paper, are very, very simple to be done. When you go in the reality, you got always this crash with the realities, with the people that maybe is not acting as you're planned and so on. And also the things that are changing in the middle. Another IBA, this is more fun for us from the inside, is just really the shrinking cities. Another problem that we got in Northern America, in Europe and so on, is just what happened to cities that are not growing, but they got a lot of spaces inside that are very, very important. In the city here, that is the South, that maybe you know, is one of the capitals of the Bauhaus. Really, they decided just to throw away the housing that were really no more use and so on, because the people was really living the city, and just to create this kind of meadow, very, very simple in the middle of the city, without maintenance, and really to not spend the money of the public money, because there were not money. And so just creating places, simple places that can be found again in the next future, is everything is changing. So really, or also just to find places like this, where play, art, other things and so on, can really help you to find another definition. You see here, without money, more or less. It's very, very simple, but just to find solution for places that need ideas more than money to come again inside a game. Zurich, so we are in Switzerland. Switzerland, you know, that is outside the European Union. They are very, very healthy, and they are very, very rich, more or less. Seen from outside is really like this, from the inside it's just a little bit different. But really, also here, the recipe was another times the same, because Zurich was a city that was completely industrial. Now is no more. Switzerland is more devoted to the tertiary fields and so on, not only benches, a lot of banks, a lot of other things and so on. But really, this is just a super piazza with this kind of superstructure that is just keeping the same volume of the industry that was here, and really it's just a place for the students to go to read, or just to study, play and so on. And really it became the earth of a community that was another time balanced. Then IBA Hamburg, this is something that there's very, very few people that is talking about this example. Another time, very, very good. In Hamburg, inside this island here, this is the river Elbe around, and in the middle there is this space that was really converted in 7 years in a very green circular economy, circular garbage. I mean, they are also recycling all the rubbish, the other things and so on. They are creating their own energy from the rubbish and so on. So really, it's something that is very, very good example, not only about architecture, about also, some ideas. We have something that we for sure you will talk is about what we do with the climate change and with the waters, the rain waters, but also the flows, the other things and so on, this kind of expected or not expected things that are arriving. Believe me or not, but these houses here, they can just flow and just go up, I don't know, just stand up, I don't know what to say, till 70 centimeters more. And they are just started to change an asset that is very, very variable. Or just really what you can do, because a place that is just a dump where you can put inside all the rubbish can be something like this, just a place where to go even during the night, because it's becoming beautiful. Or just also new technologies. In the IBA Hamburg, there were a lot of technologies applied just like this, that is the production of O2, so oxygen by the algae in the middle of the windows and so on. So you see, yeah, photosynthesis, yes, it's something that is cool, but really inside this house. What we have done in Italy, so really, because I'm teaching in Milan, I know better what we have done in Milan, but really, first of all, it's just that we have created a kind of, you see here, a crown with all the greenery that was around, using some parks that were really created during the 70s, some others that are more old, and some others that are very, very new. So you see, just this kind of things, from something that seems natural is not, something that is coming back to the ancient rice fields, because in Milan there is the rice around. So this is just a place that is just reclaimed, or just this is just another artificial lake that we got in the middle of a super reforestation of a lot of hectares. Or just something, new parks, even beside places that were not lovable and not livable, just like the motorways. I know that in China you are full of these things, for sure. Then on the other side is just also this, the Portello and so on. This is just another place. Here was where there was the Alfa Romeo Industries. Now you can find this beautiful, I have to say, the one of the most beautiful parks that we got, or maybe also parks done without super budgets, but with very, very good ideas for spaces, meadows, other things, and so on. Because sometimes parks, they don't need so much money to be, I don't know, used good or just or also flexible in the use. This is the new super park in the center of the city. Is more when it will be finished, the next year will be 60 hectares of green inside, and this is just the library of trees, is one part of, and so on. And this is just a kind of semi-public private, because really this is a private garden that is given to the city. So for 20 years will be super cultivated, because it's the family of Qatar that got the money to really do a park that is beautiful and also changeable. I don't know to say, it's very, very interesting. So, a plan. Stefano Boeri, that all of you know for the Bosco Verticale, is also a teacher of the Politecnico. This is just the Green River project that was just how to save and use all this part of railways, not more in use around Milan. If you go to see this kind of project, there are a lot of surprises inside, but also other projects around the city that are always using the former railways to recreate green spaces, because something that happened before the pandemic was really that the people in Milan was asking to have a lot of green to be lived, and really the people from Milan, they wanted to pay more taxes for this, and this is really strange because the Italians normally they don't want to pay taxes, but really the residents in Milan, they wanted to pay because they wanted to have better places around. After the pandemics, really the request was becoming more and more strong, and so really now the most part of the new real estate plans are really breaking the rules and really come to something that was really quite impossible to fault. So really every new real estate company, project of any kind of real estate company is having only the 20 or the 40% of the area covered, and the rest is a park. So normally this was on the reverse. Now the people want, otherwise they don't buy the apartments. And so this is just one picture from the Stefano Boeri Bosco Verticale in Italian, vertical forest, that really is, to me, I always say, this is not an architecture, this is just a prototype that is really working, is working very, very well. And really now Stefano Boeri and his studio, they know what to do the replicas everywhere. Maybe and sometimes also more interesting from the architectonical point of view. But the greenery that is here is covered by 17 patents, because really it's not so simple to put this. And also they have 5 years for studies about how to create this kind of monster, the green monster here. But on the other side, and also this is coming from researches of Stefano Boeri, more or less more than 20 years of research and so on. This is just another super project for Milan, that is just the reforestation of all the metropolitan city. You see, the city of Milan is here. This is all really the canopies, so really how much is the quantity of green, but in 10 years, but it started, so we are expecting for the 2030 to have more than 3 million or 30 million, sorry, of trees planted anew inside our super metropolitan cities. That means more or less 6 million of people. I know that in China, for the people that is, I mean, from the students that, from the auditors that are from there, are really very, very, I don't know, little numbers, but for us are very, very big. And also the new plan of the master plan, sorry, the plan of the city of Milan is something that is really another time related to the greenery, the importance just to create new communities inside the super community, the importance of the other places, so created a kind of network and so on. And so another time is more or less the city of 15 minutes recreated by different standards inside a kind of super city. The ideas, yes, I mean, I and Professor Li Monixing Li, that will give a lecture tomorrow. We are really having a course together, so it's just that because we cannot move around, but really we have found a way to create a little videos, other things and so on, so our students are really visiting the place of the others and living this kind of things that are changing in time and directly in this part of city. We have written an article that if you are interested you can find. It's also in Chinese because it's published in Landscape Architecture China. And for the rest, everything is up to you, actually, because remember, you are so young that you can change the world. Please change, because I would like to be old on a wheelchair maybe, but really I want to be tranquil when I will be very, very old. But really, remember, now you got in your hands the technology to do things like this that in the 60s were just foolish ideas. You got the technology. Maybe we can invest the money here, not in other stupid things. On the other side is also, this is Super Studio. This was an Italian young people at the time that were super visionary and so on, now are super celebrated, because in these things, this is just a college, we see another time. So maybe this is super dense, maybe this is super long, maybe this is not the thing that we know we'd want to do now, but really are ideas that are beautiful. So really, please use your brain to create another time alternatives, because we need alternatives to be done. Just like this was done for fear, and this is just, and it's not the coating, it's the floating piece, sorry. I can say that it's Google that has changed, this is just stupid, but really, Christophe and Jean-Claude, Christophe, this is really was the last thing that he did before dying, was really this kind of promenade, more than 2 kilometers of promenade over the water, and really was something fantastic. But really, at the end, was really art that is giving one idea, bringing back the people to something very, very, just like in the 70s, the people that is taken the possession, or really the power over something that is great. So really is how I can perceive the place. So another time, how I can change the landscape that we have done. Because at the end, we have, sorry, because seems, I know that seems a kind of peace and flowers, but really, is really, we got, and I think that now is, we don't have to laugh, is the reality. We got only one world. We have to keep it very, very safe. I think that you know this is Tre Cime di Lavaredo, the mountain very, very famous in Veneto region here in Milan. Sorry, here in Italy. That is broken, some of this part, because it's too much hot and the pier is just dilating and this is just broken. Or in the other side, we came to arrive to this kind of Mars on the Earth. So let's try these things when we go, maybe in the next future, in the 50 years, 60, 70 years, to Mars. But really, we don't have to have Mars on the Earth. It's too much. So, okay, maybe I ran a little bit, but because I wanted also to know if there are some comments or just some questions, other things and so on. And here you find all my coordinates. So, at the end, I don't think that I've gone so much far away from what was the first idea when I prepared this kind of lecture, but I think that was more open to give you the possibility to better understand what is coming from now on, because also I got this kind of privilege to be one of the first invited to this stage. So, having read what have you done, or what you will be doing in the next days, I think that really this could be a kind of starting point just to think about. Okay, so I finished about the lecture, but I'm here for these 5 minutes of questions. I don't know how to, I asked to the moderator what we have to do.
Maybe I think I will host the Q&A section. Yes,
Yes,
because
it's something like this. The idea is this.
yes, and first of all, and thank you very much for your lecture. I know you have prepared 150 slides for this lecture, so thank you very much for this contribution. And then most of the parts I have know about it because we have cooperate with each other and contribute many papers for the landscape architecture journal and so on, and also the landscape architecture collaborations for our students. So thank you very much for the lectures, first of all. And then for the questions, I think the students can leave your questions in the chatting group, and I can see your questions, and maybe the Professor Luca can answer the questions for you. And maybe at this time we can we can talk to each other about what about your feeling about this lecture, Professor? Well, there's no vote. Okay. Yeah, okay.
No,
Perfect.
I'm just looking in the answers here is all the people that is happy to be here, but I don't see questions. Am I right?
Just reply, I think, and then there's no question. So I think we can talk a little bit for the time, maybe give the students more time to think about and remind your lectures, I think. And maybe you can introduce something about the terms you have you have explained about the 环境 environment. You said you have no idea about this pronunciation in Chinese, so that is 环境. I can tell you. And then you gave many words about keywords about the environment, resilience, and so on. I think it is very interesting for the Chinese students and other students. And there's still no questions about that. Maybe you can see more about maybe the green spaces for the resiliency.
There is a kind
connection.
So there is, yeah. Guatam, I hope to say well the name, but really, examples. I'm sorry, but really, I love, because something that I forgot to say, that I like to talk about the things that I'm sure, so the things that I visited. There are some places, I think that I'm a kind of globetrotter, but I'm not so much globetrotter, and so really that's why I don't know how. I don't have pictures about a lot of places around the world and so on, but really I'd like to present the things that I know, because maybe if some do some questions or the things and so on, at least I can just answer well, or just answer in the way that I think that is well. But on the other side is really something that was there, because the course that we are trying to do, Professor Limon and I, with our students, is really that because there is no possibility to go around in the world at the moment, really, the idea is really just to do this kind of visits. So to me, is really something I ask always to my students when they are doing the final degree, the final thesis for the graduation, other things and so on. You have been in this place? It doesn't matter if this place is in Milan or in another place in the world, but really is your perception, because really this thing that we perceive, our perception, can be different also from other people and so on. So there is another question here. There is okay.
Examples from Asia. I think you can say something about the Shougang Industrial Heritage Park.
Just
we have visited before.
I'm trying to read this answer. Now. Too many. Stop. No, really, it's just that the buildings are affected by the climate change, and really, you have always, when we do calculations, there are so many examples, and this is just another time. Go to visit these kind of things. When you find in books, in journals, other things, and so on, there are very good examples against or just done for this. please, if you can, go to really to taste them by yourself, because it happened in Milan. We got one super example of a building that was created to just live in perfect solitude and just escape any kind of climate change and so on. But really, what was discovered was just that in February was not livable inside because it was boiling 25 degrees. At the end, what happened that really this climate change is happened. So really, it's not so easy even when you do all the calculation. Yes, this is just, I mean, sometimes Italians are, so I'm just answering to, just a moment, because really, Rubaina Cialpanga. So really, it's just that yes, in Milan, really, people is important. You know, the politicians want to be elected and so on. So really, when more than 1 million of people start to say that they want to have this, and doesn't matter what it costs. So really, that they want more livable places for the children. They want more livable places for the elderly. They have to want to be helped. They want to find places where to go in health, in security, other things, and so on. At the end, the politicians have to find solutions in this way. So it's more or less a process that is the bottom up system and so on. At the moment, really, it's just became so that so important to really make the citizens happy that really also from the up to bottom it started this. So really the proposals are becoming more and more and more interesting, but not only in Milan, really in Europe in general. Okay, thank you too for your compliments. Papa, and then. No, the 15 minutes really is just that, so it's just for Bur Burtial. Sorry, sorry for my pronunciation about the names, but really, the question about the 15 minutes. 15 minutes is really to reuse inside the city, so really create in the local communities all the things that a community needs around. So one of the best examples, also because now seems that they have invented the 15 cities, is not Paris, but you have to go to see in Barcelona the Super Isla. Write, or maybe I don't know how to say, but really, or just write to me. You've seen my. But really, on the other side, the satellite city, no, it's just something that is outside. So it is really that the satellites have uh, 15 minutes of ray and you find all the things that you need. So it's no more the super shopping center, it's no more the super cinema, it's no more this, but all the things that are little. You have just to think that in Italy, in example, we are just closing all the super cinema, the multiplex and so on. We want to go to the cinema inside the city. That was more or less like 40 years ago. We want not to go to the shopping center to do any kind of the food markets and so on. We love now to have this here, and was something that was started before the pandemics, but with the pandemics it became really super important, and we have discovered that really this is what we need, because the most important thing is just that, okay, I cannot move from home, I can move by law around no more than 1 kilometer. I want to find something to eat. So this is just something. But we have really these pandemics. If we can take the good things that we have taught to us and so on, I think that there are so many, because really we have really to rethink our cities very, very well. And there is a lot of work for you. Don't worry, in the future there will be, doesn't matter what is the work that you do related with the city, is a lot of work to make the things better. I think that we are on the time. I don't know. For the rest, it's just you are more than welcome. If you just want to write me an email, it's just no problem. And for the people that is in China or just from BUCEA, can refer to Professor Monishing. Monishing Lee that can just.
I hope you can enjoy this lecture today. Yeah. And I think one more question, and
I don't see.
I don't know the time.
Oh no, there are some other
Okay,
questions.
one more last question. Yeah, this is the last one you can.
Sorry. What is this? Oh, there are many things here.
Knowledge.
Okay, no, so something like this, I can say that Africa. Really, I'm sorry. Really, just like I said, I've never been in Africa, and it's my fault, of course, and so on. But I can say the Politecnico now is looking very, very carefully about new strategies for China and so on. Sorry, from Africa and so on. So it's something that really we got in mind, and we're starting to do a lot of. So about 15 minutes here, and so on.
Okay, I think the time is.
No, the time is past. Okay. Yes, really. No, you know, this is really my fault. So I'm sorry for all the friends that are from Kenya. You know, that is a university from Kenya that is there. Really, but really, I don't like to talk about what I don't know. So I promise to come to Africa and study a little bit what is happening there and so on. So really, my fault. Next time you will find me more prepared.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Maybe if there are many more questions from the students, you can just send a message or send an email to the Professor Luca, and he also gave the Instagram ID. I think if you can use VPN, you can add the professor. Yeah, this is no problem, I think. And thank you very much. And maybe Professor Huang Qing or other professors will give some words. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Li, and thank you, Professor Luca, for this wonderful lecture. And next lecture, I am honored to introduce the Dr. Moz Jabasi. She holds a BSc degree in civil engineering with a minor in civil engineering, MCS in photogrammetry engineering, and PhD in remote sensing. Her expertise is in the areas of computer vision, deep learning, photogrammetry, sensor integration and self-calibration, and robot vision. In 2022, she joined the government of Canada in the Ministry of Natural Resources as a computer vision and photogrammetry scientist. She's currently developing automated techniques for georeferencing and processing historical images to actual various statistics related to the natural resources of the country. As part of her voluntary activities, she has been a secretary of the International Society of Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing, vice president of Canadian Remote Sensing Society, associate editor of Canadian Journal of Remote Sensing, and co-editor-in-chief of Journal of Unmanned Aerial Vehicles and associate editor of Drone Systems and Applications. She has been an active participant and organizer of STEM outreach programs such as NSERC Charts for Women in Science and Engineering, Women in Data Science, and Cyber Mentor. Today, Dr. Moz Jabasi will give a lecture for us. Her topic is 3D visual perception and its applications in urban development. Let's welcome Dr. Moz Jabasi. Welcome.
Hello, do you hear me well?
Yes, no problem.
And is my screen shared properly? So do you see the full screen? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fabrice. So thank you, Dr. Huang, for your introduction. Yeah, and I'm very glad actually to be here, part of this great summer school. So as explained, my name is Mojdeh, and I'm glad to be here today and introduce you to my research work of 3D visual perception to be consistent with the theme of this summer school, specific applications for monitoring and mapping the urban environment. So first, I will introduce my career journey. Most people find it interesting because I've always sort of been in both academia and industry and could never decide which one is actually more interesting. And hopefully it can be an inspiration for grad students among our participants who feel the same. And then I know that some of our participants today are university or college undergrads, and they might have not learned about the principles of perception yet. So I will start by explaining what it is and how it is achieved. And then finally, we will get to some examples for its applications in the urban environment from my past and current research projects. So I had to start by a little introduction on my background. I completed my BSc in geomatics engineering, and as my final project, I worked on a medical imaging project about the detection of colon polyps from CD colonography scans, and this caught my attention to the imaging world in general, and that's why I chose to do my MSc in photogrammetry engineering, and during my master's, I worked on a research project related to synthetic aperture radar satellite imagery, and then I did my thesis on developing a mobile mapping system. I will later actually show you its application. During my MSc, I was also a survey engineer at a consulting company for pipeline industry. And then in 2012, I started, I actually immigrated to the other side of the world, to Canada, and I started my PhD program in remote sensing in Sherbrooke, and I was also co-supervised at York University. My research topic stayed in photogrammetry and computer vision. I developed an unmanned aerial imaging and mapping system, and we will shortly actually see some slides that are taken from my PhD thesis. And then during this time, I also worked as a part-time researcher at CGQ, which is a technology transfer center. Basically, they do industrial research at the request of private companies to address a specific problem, and they mainly geomatics related to geomatics technologies. And I was also a research assistant at York University. And then after my PhD, I was awarded a postdoc fellowship to work at York again, but then I left after a couple of months for University of Calgary, where I became a tenure track assistant prof in geomatics engineering. And there I established my research lab, which was called Autonomous Mapping, and I pursued my love of photogrammetry and computer vision, but more specifically for navigation purposes. And then in 2019, I took a leave from university, and I only basically continued supervision tasks. And I started as the lead scientist at the same center, CGQ, as I introduced before. And during this job, I felt much closer to the industry. I had the chance to work on projects directly related to their needs, and usually with like short-term delivery status, like 6 months. So I found that exciting compared to university, because in academia, usually our projects are open-ended somewhat, and our research programs takes years to start yielding industry-grade results. So it's in that regard, it's rewarding. So that gave me the courage to quit the university and decide that while I loved my job at university, I like industrial research and development more than teaching and pure academic research. So I started working as a machine learning specialist in computer vision again at a company in civil security and public safety called Genetec. And this experience was very interesting and rewarding for me in two senses, basically. As someone with an academic degree in fields of geomatics who worked intensively in machine learning and computer vision fields for many years, I still didn't have enough confidence when comparing myself to people doing similar projects, but with a computer science background. So landing this job and doing actually well in this job helped me gain more confidence in my skills. Also, the second sense is that I was working with an incredible team of developers, and I had an exemplary manager who supported me and taught me a lot during a relatively short period. So I think these are two things that, like, people who are starting to decide what their next job should be. These are good pointers to think about when you're selecting your next job. And finally, in 2022, this year I was tempted by a great national project related to historic airborne photography, as Dr. Hoon just mentioned, at Natural Resources Canada, and that's why I became a scientist at the Canadian Centre for Mapping and Earth Observations, and I'm proud to serve my country now. So something I learned from my own somewhat too much of job changes is that yes, you have to be happy in your job, but you don't need to change your job just because you're unhappy. You can do it for seeking new challenges, entering new fields, and learning new things, specifically when you're like younger, like most of the attendees of this school who are close to it graduating. You should not stress too much about finding your lifelong job, because you will have a lot of time to figure it out. If you keep an open mind to professional ups and downs along the way, you will find your passion in actually more than one job. So now let's dive into my R&D interests. So my main passion during all my profession, whether industry or academia, has been in visual perception of the environment and interacting with the environment in an intelligent way, for either like the general scene understanding, for performing tasks like high precision inspections or mapping missions. And to do such things, we do need sensors and platform systems based on several terrestrial, flying, manned, unmanned vehicles. So these have been always at the core of my research programs. So how I would define 3D visual perception is basically observing, sensing, and understanding the environment through passive or active sensors, with the primary goal of building a 3D representation of the environment. And a couple of years ago, I found this video produced by a research lab at ETHC, so credit completely goes to them, that explains the 3D visual perception really the best I can do. So if you imagine our current cities, people are constantly gathering data by their cameras. Then we have webcams, we have specific mobile mapping systems, drones. They are all collecting all this data. So if we can process them using advanced techniques of artificial intelligence and computer vision, then we can build 3D maps of our cities. We can classify the land cover of our cities. We can know, okay, there are parts of the city that are really low in vegetation. Then we can even use that for extract further information. For example, measuring the surface of our facades or rooftops, and then understanding how much of solar energy, for example, we can produce to be more sustainable in terms of energy utilization. We can use it for visual place recognition. It means you're somewhere, your GPS is out of work, can you recognize where you are in the city? So it's basically what we call the larger scale visual place recognition. We can use that to navigate through city and dense urban environment where GPS might have issues navigating. So you can use it for simultaneous, basically, localization and mapping. So not only just navigate, but also at the same time map our city. We can use it for even higher level gathering of information, like doing the semantic segmentation on the go, and doing tracking of different objects that can be used for intelligent transport systems and so on. So there are really a lot of applications that can be tied to 3D visual perception in the context of city. And basically, there are many ways to perceive the environment, of course, but in this lecture, I will go through one of the main methods, which is also my expertise, to achieve 3D visual perception, which is photogrammetry. So based on passive sensors and specifically cameras. So let's quickly see how we build a 3D representation of the environment using photogrammetry. First, we need to acquire images, of course, that's the beginning. And in forming the images and also in all photogrammetry principles, the most important theory or axiom of geometric optics for us is that light travels in form of straight lines in homogeneous materials, and the optical path of the light is also reversible, so we can reconstruct it back. So the light rays are reflected by the object surface. Light can be received from sun or other sources of light, and then it's reflected by the object surface. And if we have a film surface, for example, we can capture those light rays and that will make an image. But of course, the problem is that each point of the object is now going to reflect light in many directions. So basically, each point of the object will be imaged all over the surface of the film. So we can fix that by adding a pinhole near the image surface to let only a narrow bundle of light from each object point to pass and reach the image surface. So it gives us the camera. And in this figure, we can see the simplest model of the camera that we call it the pinhole camera that describe the imaging process by a camera which is recognized by simply a flat image plane and a light barrier hole. We call it the perspective center. So camera is of course very, very complicated, but the simplest way I can show a camera is just with a pinhole and then image surface. So in photogrammetry, we talk a lot about camera calibration. What is the ideal camera measurement versus what is actually measured by the camera? For example, we've just said that the ray of light travels in a straight line, but due to different sources of systematic error, light can be deviated from its straight line. And it's the job of this calibration to measure those types of deviations and then correct them. So here's an example of how the raw image looks before calibration. So we see like a lot of distortions, like along this line of the door, we can see it's actually distorted. But this is a systematic error that's corrected through calibration, and it gives us something like that. So it's the calibrated image, we call it. So as it works for our eyes, 3D photogrammetric reconstruction is also based on the fact that an object point must be observed from at least two points of view, two different angles. And this means having at least two images that have overlap. They look at the same place, basically. And it's called the stereo vision. And of course, instead of two overlapping images, we often prefer to have hundreds, thousands, or even millions of overlapping images to be able to reconstruct the scene completely. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at the steps of this 3D reconstruction process. So the first step is what we call the sparse matching. This means that we need to determine which images have enough overlap, and we need to identify the key points that are observed in both images. In traditional photogrammetry, these key points are defined by specific targets, but in computer vision, these key points are features, basically, that are automatically extracted. And this is really the most important aspect of computer vision in the world of photogrammetry. The rest of the 3D reconstruction process are all based on rules of photogrammetry that existed long before computers could have the ability to do computer vision. And then the next step is called view clustering. So 3D reconstruction is sort of a sequential process. First, we start with pairs of images, then triplets of images, and then more images are added. So different techniques exist to automatically tell how this process should be structured. But at the pair view level, we first need to find the motion between the images, which we also call the relative orientation. Then we can find the 3D coordinates of the corresponding points between the images, which is basically the 3D structure. So from motion, we got to structure, and that's where the term structure from motion comes. As the whole process is sequential, those of you who are in surveying, for example, you know that in sequential processing, we always accumulate errors. So we need to make a global adjustment at the end to eliminate all those errors which are systematically accumulated. This is called bundle adjustment. And through the bundle adjustment, we can also enter some ground truth observations, like the 3D coordinates of some ground control points or GCPs, to georeference our images in the mapping coordinate system too. So that would contribute to the mapping process. And the final step is dense matching, which means finding a match between all possible pixels of overlapping images. And to facilitate the dense matching, we first use external orientation parameters of our images, so how our images are located and rotated, which we calculated at the bundle adjustment to stereo rectify images. And image rectification basically means that we transform the images so that the corresponding points line on the same image lines. And that means for each pixel, we have to search for its match only along one line rather than the whole image space. So the result of the dense matching is what we call a disparity map. And then from the disparity map, we can reconstruct the depth map, which is essentially the dense point cloud of our environment that we had imaged. And voila, the 3D model is now there. And in our research projects, we use open source libraries. We integrate them with our algorithms for a more complete photogrammetry tool to meet a specific customer need. And then we integrate computer vision and artificial intelligence like deep learning techniques for achieving goals in specific application areas. So, for example, this is also part of my PhD thesis. We use different algorithms to speed up the step that I call dense matching, and the technique has been recognized as one of the most accurate ones for a while on a benchmark. And then we can improve the look of our data. For example, in a study we were doing on the mine, we had a lot of shadowing caused by the cliffs of the mines. And we had to come up with different techniques to remove the shadows first and then go to the 3D reconstruction. And that not only improved the look, but also assisted with better accuracy in 3D mapping. And then similar thing, we had a drone survey, and then a patch of cloud was actually following the drone. So we had a line of cloud covered scene, and if we didn't do anything about it, we wouldn't have been able even to reconstruct the scene in 3D. So what we did was, again, correcting the images to make them look more similar to their adjacent ones, and then the 3D reconstruction could be completed. So in visual perception, sensors are very important, and to me, they are also very interesting because they are the main tools to acquire the data that leads to perception. So to me, sensors are, I always divide them to two categories. So sensors for imaging and also ranging, so like laser scanning or other types of ranging, and sensors for navigation, so like an inertial measurement units, global positioning unit, ultra wideband ranging, anything that leads to position or orientation. And some aspect of my research is always real-time like integration of these sensors in a way so that I can gather and process the data in real time as well. And then these sensors can really vary from anything like highly industrial grades or survey grade sensors, different types of laser scanner, whether they are on the ground like a terrestrial or mobile laser scanner, or whether they go on air like an airborne laser scanner, or airborne cameras, metric cameras, multispectral cameras, thermal cameras, or even more precise measurement systems that can actually do ranging, but with like micrometers levels of accuracy. So these are types of sensors I've always worked with, and I find my 3D visual perception passion within the sensors, basically. And usually you need more than one sensor to do to meet the needs for a specific application. So you would integrate several sensors. Like on this one at the left, we have like a thermal camera, multispectral camera with 5 different bands, and then GoPro, so our stereo vision coming from them. And then on the one on here on the right, it's basically a laser scanning system where laser scanner and a camera are combined. So as I said, sensor calibration is always important. So all those systematic errors, they don't get corrected by themselves. You need to do a process called the calibration. And now always what model you choose for your cameras is important. For example, this some of you may know this Ladybug camera, according to the manufacturer, this is a wide angle camera, but at a closer look, we can see that it could actually follow more like a real fish-eye geometry, and that would lead to its better calibration. So it's always thinking about what kind of model you want to use to calibrate your camera, and what kind of model best reduces the errors after a calibration process. And also calibration process is a computationally intensive process as well. So like that system I showed you with the camera and a laser scanner, for calibrating it just in one scene, we have like more than 2 million observations, and each of these observations are going to create us one equation basically in our huge calibration system to solve. So we end up with systems of multi-million equations. So we've come out with what we call like modern bundle adjustment techniques, or sparse ones that can handle these numbers of equation all together. And then beside the sensors, we need platforms. So platform is basically whatever, a car, a drone, a helicopter, an airplane, just your hand, anything that basically holds the sensor and moves it through the environment of interest. So at a higher level, these platforms actually can use their own perception to explore. So in this video we are seeing, this drone is a simple toy drone. It's equipped with a simple camera only. And what we've done, we've actually trained it to locate the tripod. So it's fully doing all this by itself. So it's detecting the tripod, and when it detects it, it's also trying to explore it. So it's I found it, and now turning around it to detect it. And on the other video, we are basically commanding something very simple. We're commanding the drone to stay at one point, and even if you blind it, take it somewhere else, it will still use the vision to come back where it was. And there are so many other things that you can do with adding perception to the platform itself. For example, we've used it for replacing GPS. So in certain environments, it might not be possible to use GPS for navigation, and even you need more accurate GPS observation for georeferencing process, for mapping process. And we've actually taken the GPS out the system, and just using the camera, using the vision, we are doing the navigation and also the georeferencing. So that system I showed you with the LiDAR and the camera, we took the GPS out of it, and then we integrated on a drone and used it for mapping purposes. Here's an example in precision agriculture, and then here's an example for heritage preservation. So here it's not even on a drone, so the system is basically handheld, and still the vision helps to build the trajectory of the hand basically, and then reconstruct the 3D view. So at NRCan, some of our teams are also working on land cover mapping. It's very important to understand our city environment and know what kind of features we have in the city. So how many buildings we have, what percentage is covered by vegetation, are they low vegetation, medium, or high vegetation, how much of bare ground we have, how much water, and where the water is flowing, all of this. So we combine different sources of data from satellite, airborne, imagery, laser scanning, everything to be able to do this as complete and as up-to-date as possible for the public to use. And here in, sorry. Okay, here in this project, now 3D visual perception is used for creating interactive maps and highlighting the key elements of flood and flood risk communication. This is a 3D representation of a flood that occurred once in 2005 and then again in 2008 in Fredericton, New Brunswick in Canada, where the flood surrounded houses and buildings and made some streets impossible to pass through. Really a lot of damage were caused by these two floods. And the map shows the water level above the ground in blue gradient, and each building is assigned a color representing the water level at that location. The buildings in red are the ones that are suffering the most damage, basically. The ones in orange are medium water level, and the ones in yellow represent the buildings where the water depth of the surface is the least, and the gray ones are the non-flooded areas. So basically, these types of interactive visualizations are not just for the government and the decision makers, but also for the public to understand the risks of flood to their properties, and to be able to plan their travels and everything during a time like this. So in my research, we've also done solar potential analysis, so understanding how much of solar energy would have been produced if we had solar panels on our rooftops of our houses. And there are many governments that have started this project, whether like provincial or federal ones that are doing this, not just in Canada, but beyond as well. This helps like both either residential or even commercial ones to understand how much sustainable energy they can produce if they had installed solar panels. And the key is also, again, 3D visual perception, because you have to know the height of the building, the slope of the rooftop, or the surface of the facade, the facing, the orientation of the building, and its relation with respect to the position of the sun throughout the year, to be able to predict such values like the energy. And then this is actually part of my master's project. I was telling you about a mobile mapping system that has several cameras integrated on it, and its role is basically locating and detecting the type of traffic signs, and that would be helping municipalities to maintain the traffic system and also to be used in intelligent transportation systems. This other project is related to some new developments in the city, where so the roundabouts are the new developments, and they wanted to understand how the cars are behaving. This is something new, and in Canada specifically, we don't have a lot of roundabouts. So putting like 4 of them, 3 or 4 of them at one place, that could confuse the drivers, and the behaviors could be not very legal. So we've been monitoring these roundabouts for quite a long time, and using actually UAV imagery and videos, and then detecting and tracking each vehicle, and also being able to estimate its speed, and then that would thus give us a very good measure of how the vehicles are behaving around these roundabouts. Another aspect that I've been involved a lot is like infrastructure inspection and structural health monitoring. So that's big part of the city, the infrastructure, right? And how we maintain it is very important, because with all the impacts of like climate change and everything, deterioration of buildings and other types of infrastructure, critical ones like bridges, dams, simple ones, even sidewalks, they are being more and more affected. So we need to be able to monitor their status and then make good decisions about when it's time to actually do a repair, whether it's like an emergency repair, like after a disaster, or just the routine inspections and routine maintenance of the infrastructure. So If you're from the civil engineering world, you know that for something we do regularly for monitoring bridges is that when they are being constructed, we place sensors in them or on their surface. So like accelerometers, laser transducers, things that help us monitor their deformations and also their vibrations. These are, of course, all kind of invasive methods because the sensor is being attached to this infrastructure. And if something's happening to the infrastructure and the sensor is actually out of function because the structure is damaged itself, then we lose our data. So it's good to complement them basically by adding sensors that are away a little bit from the away from the structure, so they are remotely sensing and observing data of the structure. So we were interesting to know what is the real capacity of a camera, and we did this project in collaboration with civil engineers, where they were doing hammer tests. So this is a lab structure, and it has a lot of sensors on it. They would put a hammer on it, it would vibrate or a little bit deform, and then they would measure that. And our camera over here, it was just looking at this structure and taking high frame rate videos as they were doing this experiment. And then we extracted the movements of the structure because of this test. And then we can see in the graph that when we compared them together, so camera versus, for example, accelerometer that is attached to the structure, they pretty much yield the same thing. And if you notice the level of this displacement, or because of the vibrations, for example, is under 1 millimeter all the time. So it's very interesting that the camera can also do that level of high precision inspection. I've also worked with industries to integrate systems for monitoring different types of infrastructure. For example, telecommunication towers, they are hard and difficult assets to reach, basically, because of their height simply. So drones can access them, image, and then from the images you can extract a lot of information, whether it's like reading some text on some element, measuring the text, measuring the structures within the infrastructure, and then relating it to the image. So it's like a twin view of the structure, basically in 3D and in 2D, and very precise measurements. Again, we know that it's possible to do, and that would eliminate the need for people to actually climb this infrastructure and taking measurements with the tape, for example. Same company developed a platform for monitoring infrastructure, specifically buildings. So the platform was called BlueView. And basically, again, we have both 3D and 2D views of the infrastructure. We extract automatically different types of features from it. So understanding different elements of a building, for example, windows. And for example, we know that like cracking starts happening usually around the windows, and they are the ones that are dangerous, for example, for water filtration. So it's good to know where the windows are and then inspect closely around the windows for finding cracks, for example. So, or on the rooftops, if you combine optical and thermal imagery, then you would even be able to extract anomalies related to energy loss and being able to avoid them or damage other types of damages to the rooftop. So all these were integrated into a single platform, and I was just an advisor, of course, in the project. The company is the main developer. And then same company came up with another generation of platform AI platforms that's benefiting from 3D visual perception again. So this is like what we call a few shot or even a one-shot learning in terms of deep learning, where like the inspectors fly their drones, take their images by their own cameras or whatever, upload them to the system and tell us what kind of damage they are looking for, and then we start looking to find all the other types of damages. So these are very amazing things that you can do by combining 3D visual perception and AI to really help our infrastructure, specifically the urban ones that are the ones in most danger of ruining and damaging. You can inspect them in a routine way with lower cost compared to before. Same thing, we had a project on monitoring sidewalks. So cracking and spalling is one of the main things that happen in sidewalks. For using like supervised deep learning approaches to segment out and detect these cracks, we need a lot of data. And those of you who've worked a little bit in deep learning, you know that data annotation or data labeling is really a very, very difficult task, specifically when it comes to like cracks, because you have to annotate every single pixel on the image that corresponds to a crack. So we've developed, of course, like some semi-automated crack segmentation techniques where the traditional techniques of crack segmentation were used, and then like an annotator would correct the results and produce annotations. But then we tried, okay, can we just synthesize crack images? So we used, again, deep learning itself to show a machine basically what a crack is, on what kind of surfaces it happens, what kind of shape and figure it usually has. So all of these images that you see in this figure, they are all synthetic. So the machine has basically come up with these types of crack images. And the good thing is they already annotated the data as well. And then we've used all these techniques together to be able to do what we call a stereo inference and use it for not only detecting the cracks, but also 3D reconstructing the crack. So now we know how wide the crack is and how long it is, where it's located, and that can help the managers to make good decisions about when is the critical time to maintain and repair this part of the infrastructure to avoid really further damage. So this slide would kind of conclude what I wanted to tell you about 3D visual perception and its application in the city environment, specifically for city infrastructure. So yeah, thank you for listening to me. And you can, of course, reach out to me right now to ask questions, or later if you want to connect through LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn account address, basically, where you can find me and connect with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. And that's a really amazing lecture.
Thank you.
And now it's our Q&A session. So students are welcome to type their question in the chatting board or use the Q&A function. So I noticed that there is already
questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me maybe go through them. So first question from Sarah. I'm a surveying and geomatics graduate. I was taught bundle adjustment and interior orientations, but I never knew they were so important for 3D perception. My question now is, what software do you use for the orientations and bundle adjustments? So as I said, yeah, I've used a lot of open source software in the past, and then I've added to the software by building new components by myself. So in terms of bundle adjustment, it's mostly software developed within my research team, and it's called SBA, Sparse Bundle Adjustment, and that's the one that handles a lot of equations. But in general, if you want to know a few of the open source software, so I'm not advertising for any team or anything specific, but like Micmac, for example, is a very good and solid photogrammetry open source software. It has all the components, so all the steps I talked about, they're already integrated in this software. If you want to start using, they also have good interface, command line interface, not a graphic one, a command line interface, where you can, without getting into like a C++ coding or anything, you can start using it. Yeah, I think that's one of the good ones to start with. So the next question is, thanks for the engaging presentation. You're very welcome. For building monitoring, what data was used to analyze the damage? It's mainly imagery only. So from the images, we build dense 3D point clouds, something like what you would have obtained from close range laser scanning, and then using both of them, so a combination of 3D point cloud and a 2D image, fuse the data, and that helps us to do better damage assessment. So some features are more 3D, so they're more geometric. Some features are more visual, so you need both type of information to be able to detect the damage robustly. So next question. Thank you for the educative lecture. You're very welcome. In fusing different sensors together, how do you handle differences in the sensor accuracies? That's a very good question. So we use usually probabilistic approaches to do sensor fusion, where weights are either based on experiment and manufacturing, or based on real-time understanding of the limitations of the data. Weights are assigned to each observation coming from each sensor. So when you fuse the sensors, you're basically considering uncertainties in each of them. So thank you, you're very welcome. What specific guiding role can 3D visual perception play in urban traffic organization? So as I showed, like there are different aspects. Sometimes you just want to monitor driver behaviors because of a new urban development, like I showed the new roundabouts. That's how we did it actually. So we were taking airborne data for a couple of days, and then we've been extracting the cars, detecting them and tracking them, and then using again the same rules of photogrammetry to also estimate their position and their speed through their journey around the roundabouts, and that would give us an idea of the further people really expert in traffic management would study that and understand the behavior. Other things in the traffic is, I mentioned I had worked for a security company, Genetec, and part of their products is actually traffic surveillance products. And I was part of that development team as well, where we developed solutions for detecting the car speed, reading the license plate, positioning the car between different cameras, stuff like this, all based on vision again. And 3D vision was part of it specifically for speed estimation and things. So I hope that answers your question. So here's earlier question from Tamer Saleh. How many numbers of GCPs at least we need for bundle adjustment? Because collecting GCPs is expensive? That's a very good question. And I actually have published a paper just on that topic as part of my PhD thesis. Specifically for my PhD, I was working for 3D mapping of mines, open pit mines, so that they can understand how much material is going in and out. And it's very difficult to access all the areas of a mine. You can usually, they allow you to access like the parking lot, and then there are maybe 2 parking lots at 2 ends of the mine, and that's it. You cannot go inside the mine anymore. So that was one of my challenges. How many GCPs should I place, and where strategically should I place them? So in theory, you need 3 GCPs at least in a network, but it's beyond that, where you place these GCPs, and it's really just 3 enough. All of these are questions that need that depend on the scene structure, on the overlap of your images, so your the geometric network, the geometry of your photogrammetric network, and stuff like this. So I would refer you to one of my papers. If you like, just connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will refer you to that specific paper to read about different scenarios of GCPs.
Thank you, Professor. So I think the time is almost there, and thank you so much for answer question relentlessly, and yeah.
Thank you again for inviting me, and thank you everyone for listening to me. And if you have further questions, please connect with me. I would be more than glad to answer any.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay,
thank you. Have a good day.
And students, we will begin our next lecture at 10 p.m. Beijing time. So you have 5 minutes to take a short break, and we will come back at 10 p.m. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this time, Professor Qixi, you can make the screen sharing.
Okay.
And see you all in 5 minutes later, 10 o'clock p.m. 10 o'clock p.m. 同学们，咱们10点整见，大家休息5分钟，一会儿不见不散。
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela, obviously.
Yeah. Hello, Danina.
Hi.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And I wanted just to ask, can I try my presentation to see that you see the right thing?
Yeah. You can have a,
yes, you can
have a try.
Because we are using here a lot of Teams, and I don't use Zoom often enough. Funny thing, no? Okay, let me try to see if it's working. I'm gonna try to share the screen that I would like to have the presentation on. So I'm gonna ask you now, do you see the Resilient City title and the New York Manhattan area?
Yes.
And you don't see any notes, no? Just the slides, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, just a slide. Yeah.
No notes. Okay, making sure. Thank you.
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Because I have different monitors and I'm a bit confused here. Okay, let me see how to. Cool. Then I will do this when we're ready.
Thank you. Hi, Professor. I have a question. Can I know your surname? Is that Deutsch?
Can you repeat?
Is your surname pronounced as Deutsch?
No, it's Deutsch.
Deutsch.
Deutsch. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a German name.
It's a German name. Okay.
It's like Deutschland, you know, which means Germany.
Okay. Yeah, I got that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think it's already 10 p.m. Beijing time. Good morning, Professor Deutsch. How are you doing?
Good morning. Very well. It's very early here. It's 7 a.m. But that's a day well spent to start it with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm the moderator of your lecture. My name is Ji from BUCEA, and we're very glad to having you here. So before you get started, please let me briefly introduce you, okay?
Thank you.
Professor Deutsch has been practicing and teaching architecture for the past 20 years. She's currently the head of architectural program and professor at the New School of Architecture and Design in San Diego, where she teaches integrated design studio and environmental systems with a focus on an integrated approach to energy efficient design. She currently serves on the board for the San Diego Green Building Council. She holds a master's degree in architectural engineering from the Technical University of Amsterdam in Germany. Today she's gonna talk about resiliencies. And welcome, Professor Deutsch. It's your time.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna take 1 second to share my screen. So hello again. I am Daniela Deutsch, professor and head of architecture programs at the New School of Architecture and Design in San Diego. Today, I would like to speak with you about the importance of resiliency in cities and in general, the built environment. This is, of course, a very broad subject, and today we will look at it as a critical reflection of my own point of view based on my research up to this point. And this will be kind of a collection of many writers and scholars and students as well. It's not just my own research. I've broken this into 4 parts. An introduction, framing the issue with a few selected points of view. City threats, outlining the problems we're facing in cities. Resilience, what is it? What to do about it? As well as a few selected solutions worldwide and by new school students and some local practitioners. So afterwards, I will reserve a few minutes for questions. My hope for this presentation is that you come up excited and interested to further research the issue and hopefully with some optimism as a future generation to resolve these very challenging dilemmas. So what and who makes a city resilient? That's a big question. Many of us think we know, generally we may do, but still cities face a lot of threats right now that seem to be very hard to resolve. Yeah. Why do I believe in the importance of resiliency in cities and design? It is because, as you all know, today we are all facing multiple challenges, yeah, and threats like rapid population growth, increased traffic and pollution, climate change, sea level rise, social upheavals, and so on. Many challenge the assumption of what makes a city thrive. So again, there are a multitude of opinions on that topic, and we're just starting to touch on them today. There are a lot of new values and ideas put forward, and very important questions of identity, voice, inclusion, access and opportunity, yeah, additionally to the typical city planning issues, and they have been negotiated in the context of very future dynamic urban growth and globalization. We need to recognize that this is becoming more and more crucial as we look into the future. And also that today cities are living laboratories forced to confront challenges of increased complexity. To me, there is a question that lingers as a professor in architecture. Can urban and architectural design alone address all these current issues? So obviously we are in the midst of multiple crises. Yeah, just thinking of the pandemic, and definitely in the midst of city crisis. My question as an architect and to you as students is, are we in a design crisis? And how can we do as future designers for it? A few questions here I would like to outline. Has much of the urban design failed us? What are the limits of urban design? Yeah, I personally believe redesign of our cities may be the most important thing to take on. Some people think design is just a small kind of peanut in the bowl, yeah. But I believe that we can resolve a lot with design, maybe not just with design. I think that right now, many cities are in fact debt traps, and many typical strategies exacerbate existing issues. A few more issues. We need to be aware of the danger of universalizing urban solutions. We can just design the same way. Also, there is a danger of returning to the pre-pandemic business as usual approach. There is a systemic discrimination and exclusion of the urban poor in urban agendas, as well as over-reliance on fossil fuels to support manufacturing industries. So what I'm trying here to frame in different ways, and I will show you more, is this idea of things that are for sure right now threats and real issues that are very complex and difficult to solve. Here I'm trying to frame it in a different way as I go kind of around the issue to hopefully land it. I'm going to look at the tree metaphor. And this is one of my first thoughts when starting this presentation. Yeah, I thought of the tree as the best example for resilience. Yeah, I was just thinking, well, this stuff grew over millennia, and it's still on this earth. Trees must be some of the most resilient things I know. Yeah, to think that we are going to quickly design our way out of this difficult urban dilemma, maybe not that wise. Doesn't mean that there is not a solution out there, but to me, thinking of the tree, it means there is not a quick answer right there, one design, but a multitude of answers and approaches that go over a long time. So that was my thought thinking about it. And then I researched further, and I got really excited to go kind of from this kind of very resilient entity to realize, oh, but wait a minute. Urban trees share many of the burdens of the city residents. They live in cramped conditions, riddled with infection disease, suffer from chronic stress, and in an unnatural setting, yeah, versus where the tree typically lives in the free, they tend to also live fast and die young, and the mortality rates are nearly twice as high as the trees in rural area, with fewer surviving, more than a few years. So I was a bit shocked by that, and I realized, so the most resilient thing is also truly threatened by the urban conditions. Now, again, to finally close this loop, what got me excited is that, okay, there has been one variety of tree that's proved to be remarkably resilient, and that was the ginkgo tree. Yeah, ginkgos are resistant to air pollution, outlived the dinosaurs, pretty much at some point covered the whole globe, even outlived the atomic bomb. Several ginkgos survived the blast of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in World War II and are still living. So how did ginkgo survive? Yeah. So somewhere underneath all this destruction, a tiny cylinder of living cells have survived because of a very special, extreme organization of its cell tissue that created a compartment that was immune to destruction. Yeah. So to me, this was an incredible metaphor. Yeah, because I went from the most best survivor to, oh my God, but city kills them, but then understanding there is a type of tree that remains resilient through all of these. And it is a great metaphor because to me, this is hope. And it's like a hidden leitmotif to today's discussion, yeah, that it takes a truly radical change, almost at cellular level, for practices and people's perceptions and limits to reverse some of the damage we encounter today in cities and planning arenas. So to go from tree to the built environment obviously touches all aspects of our lives, encompassing the building we live in. And I created this little animation here to remind you of the juxtaposition of these things. Yeah, all these elements that must function in a balance with us and nature: infrastructure, ecology, resiliency, livability. But to always remember as designers that there is a potential for conflict in the process of making all these pieces holistically fit together. Also, I want to remind you about the idea of sustainability and building culture. What's important for me, at least as an academic in architecture, yeah, you have these things that seem a bit, again, juxtaposed, but to me, there should be no sustainability without building culture, and the other way around. I don't want buildings that are not sustainable, and I don't want sustainable buildings that don't care about the culture. And it's just a reminder of these two issues and issues under these umbrellas. And I wanted you to think about that we need to have a very holistic and interdisciplinary approach to our practice. So to go now into more deep into the city threats, yeah, there are a variety of social and environmental trends from local to global scales contributing to increasing disaster risk and vulnerability, like rapid growth, poverty, you know, increased traffic and pollution, sea level rise and floods, and social upheavals, just to name a few. I picked two of those many just to frame you and get you started for researching further. To me, poverty is number one, and you will see not just for me, but those are, you know, poverty and inequality are highly complex and multidimensional challenges that go beyond just lack of income, yeah? And without concerted action at all levels, poverty and inequality could become the face of the future of cities, yeah? Poverty is on the rise, again, the COVID situation, COVID-19 pandemic has reversed years of remarkable progress made in the fight against poverty. Just a few numbers in terms of urban population of multidimensionally poor. And another thing that I thought it's interesting for you to know, there is the global multidimensional poverty index. Those are tools for us to understand how to deal again with those complex issues. This one examines each person's deprivation across 10 indicators in 3 equally weighted dimensions: health, education, and standard of living. And this entire document offers a high resolution to identify both who is poor and why they are poor. Here, going back a bit along this issue, you have the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They are intended to be universal in the sense of embodying a universally shared common global vision of progress towards obviously safe, sustainable space for all human beings and, you know, thriving on this planet, yeah? They also reflect moral principles that no one and no country should be left behind. And I want you as future designers and generation to never forget that, and to also study the UN Sustainable Development Goals. They're incredibly inspiring. And for me too, in fact, discovering them was a revelation. Now, you have 17 of those and poverty is number 1, yeah? So there's a lot of stuff on the UN homepage, webpage, but poverty, it's an important reminder and again, entails more than the lack of income, yeah? Its manifestation includes hunger, malnutrition, limited access to education and other basic services. To me, this is one of the biggest threats of city and city resiliency. And I just picked another one, air pollution. It's important to remember that, you know, this is something that's literally poisoning us, yeah, and the planet. This means basically, by definition, contamination of the indoor and outdoor environments by chemicals, physical and biological agents that modify the natural characteristic of the atmosphere. It's something important that the World Health Organization and global alliances on health and pollution worked on together. So again, talking about all these organizations trying to solve this complex resilience dilemma. And again, just to pick goal 11, sustainable cities and communities that touch a lot on this issue. Yeah, you know, basically, understanding that you have to plan, that you can't just leave cities grow organically, yeah, because the cost of poorly planned urbanization can be seen very well in slums, tangled traffic, greenhouse gas emissions, and sprawling suburbs. So just a few examples from also a UN document that just came out a few weeks ago, World Cities Report 2022. As you can see, I'm pointing these things to you, and this presentation will be shared so that you have these documents to research. They're very easy to find online. So just an extras here, an approach to traffic congestion and air pollution, and a few suggestions, yeah. What to do with the rapid transit system with the goal of, easing traffic congestion, reduce emission and air pollution, active travel promotion by enhancing public health. Yeah. So all of these are very good examples and suggestions for, solving some of the traffic congestion and air pollution. So this being said, I just called out a few of a long list of the typical threats. Yeah, and I finally want to go into city resilience, talk a little bit about what it is, what's the definition of it, a few examples of how this can be approached, and then we open it for questions. So again, what and who makes a city resilient? Yeah, and in my opinion, it is again a big group of planners and the people living in the city, and it's basically a whole legacy of progressive urban thinking people that are part of these living laboratories. Here you see an example of measuring city resilience by economy, society, governance, environment. All these different diagrams are trying to balance out the different issues in a kind of clearer view, but in fact, you can unpack these in lots of issues. Yeah, and I'm going to show a few examples. I like these particular diagrams because they show you a different kind of approach. Like here, you can have sustainable cities versus resilient cities versus smart cities. Often we thought of this being the same thing. Well, they are, but they focus differently on things, and together you get into these true resilient futures. Yeah, and again, I like you to be able to think about those juxtapositions and what they mean. Another very complex approach, and versus the other books that I showed you, is done by the Rockefeller Europe City Resilience Index. And I don't know if you know about Arup. They are a British multinational professional service firm, one of my favorites since I was a student. They are in London, at least the main headquarters. They provide design, engineering, architecture, planning, and advisory services. And to me, they are one of the examples of integrated design, one of the first. So by their City Resilience Index, you have those 4 dimensions. Wait. I clicked too far, I apologize. That's what I wanted. I wanted you to see another document that's very important, the City Resilience Index. And the 4 dimensions are health and well-being, economy and society, infrastructure and environment, leadership and strategy. So again, another way of framing these issues, and within you have 12 goals, and within you have 52 indicators. So here I have an example of this famous index. This is actually also used in the UN documents that I showed you before. So these organizations are in fact really collaborating and sharing each other's discoveries and research. And you can see within this wheel, in the interior part, the 4 dimensions, and then the larger one in the middle, 12 goals, and then the mini ones, the 52 indicators. I've extracted a few just to make a point. It's not all the 52, but just so you see in terms of health and well-being, this can help you a lot into your design processes. So you will have safe and affordable housing, and it's just a small list. Adequate, affordable energy supply, inclusive access to safe drinking water, effective sanitation. Yeah. So if you look through all of these, you realize kind of design strategies and approaches to aligning to the index and to actively possibly reach a holistic design solution. And another list, qualities of resilient systems: reflective, flexible, integrated, robust, resourceful, redundant, and inclusive. Again, a lot of details here, but I want you to feel that complexity. Yeah, it's not about reading everything, but it is important to understand that this is in fact just a small extras of the complexity of this topic. And I wanted to end, before I go into other issues, I wanted to end with nature as a response to societal changes, because, you know, in schools particularly, this is a big kind of trend right now, you know, biomimicry, performative design, I don't have the word, not performative, parametric design, I apologize. So on the same time, again, we need to look at this and what it means, yeah. I believe it's one of the best responses, but there is still a lot for us to discover. Again, a few examples here: ecosystems-based adaptation and mitigation, green and blue infrastructures, yeah, and so on. And they tell you what they are, and again, examples of applications that you can find in these UN Habitat and Visioning the Future of Cities report. Here I had a few examples just to kind of remind you, like this is just, you know, a nature as a response from the design by MOS, makers of sustainable spaces. I just picked one entity that I thought was very cool, led by 3 women. And here you see the Hive project, yeah, human inclusive and versatile ecosystem, heavily inspired by the structure and organization of honeycombs. So an example that's very classic of taking something in nature and identifying their strengths and attributes and trying to apply them into architectural design and solutions. This even goes further, though. That's why I thought this is a great example. Goes further into more complex components of the city and share facilities that will empower individuals, families, and communities to be self-sufficient. So another example, this is Vincent Calibot's Wooden Orchids that reimagines the shopping mall as a living, breathing ectopia. And then, you know, going into more product, a chair by Lilian Van Deel, and then a project by BNI Contemporary. So sky's the limit. I just picked a few, but I wanted, before I go into the next steps, to show you that I truly believe that there is a lot to discover into learning from nature. And another topic to frame it, that is also from the Envisaging the Future of Cities, it's kind of outlined possible scenarios for urban futures, yeah, by the UN Habitat. If I zoom in a little bit more, you will see this is giving you current trends in cities and the typical issues. This is just a little extra so I can zoom in. But then you have a high damage scenario, a pessimistic scenario, and an optimistic scenario. I thought this is really interesting. So again, I wanted to bring this up to you for future research, because again, in the high damage scenario, and which is the worst case scenario, this can come up with disastrous consequences for the future of cities. Yeah. And in the pessimistic scenario, you just have pretty bad stuff, yeah, exploitation and perpetual exclusion of informal sector workers, systemic discrimination, yeah, over-reliance on fossil fuels to support manufacturing industries. And then in the optimistic scenario, a vision where again, concerted policy actions are facilitated and implemented by the new urban agenda. So I really believe those are important things for you to see. And here are a few other books related to this topic. Most of the books I used to create this presentation, and I thought it would be nice for you to have it. Yeah, learn how to move towards an urbanism that recognize and handles the temporary nature of contemporary and emerging built environments. I think we also need to challenge ourselves to learn from extreme conditions on how to manage and negotiate different layers of the urban realm. And I'm going to show you more of this in a minute. I still have a little bit of time, so I have it's a presentation going on 50 minutes, trying to frame some of these complex issues. Here, food for thought, before I go even deeper in some examples based on what I showed you so far. Can we openly imagine more malleable technological, material, social, and economic landscapes? Can we learn how to move towards an urbanism that recognizes the temporary nature of emerging built environments with more effective strategies, for managing change? Can we learn from extreme conditions how to manage and negotiate different layers of the urban realm while accommodating new needs, of large neglected parts of urban society? And can we imagine a more flexible practice of urban design, more elastic, somebody told me recently, and something that can truly deal with more complex scenarios? To me, those are important questions. I know we can, but I want you to be ready for these questions. So I'm going to look into a few case studies and solutions. We still have 20 minutes. Thank you for your focus so far. I'm going to start with cities of the future, some really big, some of the most famous concepts out there today. The Big U in New York, Future City by SOM, and Siegel Islam Master Plan in China. I'm going to talk a little bit about local examples, the San Diego-Tijuana border and challenge, and a couple of very small resolutions. And then 4 examples of new school student work that align with this subject. So to start with the cities of the future, this is an incredible rendering by SOM. It does look like a city of the future. I think many cities already look close to this, so I know this can work out. But before going into SOM, I call case study 1 the Big U by the Archangels Group. And if you don't know, here in the US, Hurricane Sandy, was a real disaster in October of 2012. Within hours, it was inundating New York Harbor with a storm surge that reached nearly 14 feet. And an estimated 80% of the city of Hoboken was underwater. The US federal government realized that they weren't thinking comprehensively about the vulnerabilities of our cities, and that they didn't recognize the uncertainty of climate change, nor how to respond. So as a response to that, there was this fantastic competition that started by Rebuild by Design and the Rockefeller Foundation. They launched a $1 billion multidisciplinary design kind of challenge. 10 finalists came through, and this is one of them, the Big U, which is a protective system that encircles Manhattan, responding to the needs and concern of the island's diverse community. I think most of you know about this project, but I'm going to bring you just a few more details that may not be immediately kind of on all your knowledge. So the Big U protects 10 continuous miles of low-lying geography that comprise an incredibly dense, vibrant and vulnerable urban area. Not sure you've been to Manhattan, but this is truly, yeah, one of the most exciting areas I've ever been in. And I traveled a lot. So you want to shield this, you want to protect this. And the proposed system not only shields the city, it provides social and environmental benefits to the community. And here again, you see a little bit this new concept with additional infrastructure. A few great examples here. You see the harbor berm, which it also has a very strong programmatic depth. Yeah, in this particular rendering, it's a harbor middle school that becomes and reverse aquarium that becomes public event and venues at night. Here you have the B&B Plaza. It's an elevated plaza at mezzanine level. You can see a solution for going above the sea level rise. And here you have the bridging berm, a robust vertical protection for the Lower East Side. Yeah. Left, you can see from existing to improve to long-term vision type rendering. But you can see on the right, this perfect section that shows, you know, all the structural elements of it and the elevated plaza. Also a little rendering along this area. A few other cool renderings of pavilions during a normal weather situation, and on the right during flood. Here you have flip down deployables. Those are walls attached to the underside of these buildings, ready to flip down in the preparation for flood events. So this was kind of it, but I wanted you to see a very large scale, expensive, but I believe a workable solution. Case study 2, Sponge City SOM. That's a very, very interesting project for me as well. Again, we're starting with the big ones. This is kind of the idea of, they were tasked to design the city of the future, yeah, and anticipate challenges of the future. So that's the typical vision that I think architecture students can also benefit from seeing beyond all the realities. And here in this plan, all parks and infrastructure allow water to percolate through soil to research the water table as a sponge city. There are many sponge cities ideas, but you know, especially now tested in Shanghai, but this is one that was extremely visionary and complex. Here, without going through all the text, but I wanted you to be aware that this particular case study was kind of articulated on 5 scales and followed 10 key principles. Here you have 5 of them. So it can be very good for your future projects at school to revisit these ideas if you do city planning. Ecology, water, energy, waste, and food, as well as mobility, culture, livability, infrastructure, and economy. A few really cool renderings and examples from the same project. Smart buildings in this particular focus. Here you have green streets with water filtration, environmental monitoring, and native landscaping that are part of the streetscape. Solar walls and windows with solar panels, and sky gardens, yeah, that are part of the buildings to promote natural airflow and shade and social areas. Another focus is social interiors. Those are kind of shared spaces and amenities that increase human interaction and allow for smaller and micro-sized homes. Room to breathe, intergenerational housing. Yeah, the idea of a future city for all accessible to disabled, basically all the residents, as well as a very smart idea of recycling and reused. So used items are more easily reused, being already biodegradable in very dense communities. And another kind of concept of these big projects, self-contained neighborhoods, where again, things are self-relying. You can have also symbiotic buildings that are self-contained. Yeah, there's a smart idea that buildings kind of also rely on each other. You have clean energy, flexible buildings with modular interiors, wetlands restoration. That's something I love a lot. We've done a few projects here in San Diego on the topic, but definitely let's not forget the ecology and what's at the base of these large buildings. And in fact, this is a sponge city. So you see these incredible high rises, but this is not a top of skyscrapers sitting on a bed of concrete. Yeah, that's the beauty of this concept. They are surrounded by nature and wetlands and connected ecosystems. Yeah, strategic landscaping everywhere, and a very, very cool and emerging strategy, underground farming, soil-free hydroponic farms that grow to produce greens under high efficiency LED lights. So even for me, some of these are new, but I know you can research them and discover them if you know about these possibilities. And okay, hopefully become even more creative with other similar ideas. And one more, the biomorphic urbanism, this idea again of these connected bio areas, like from regions to rooms. Yeah, you have elements that are shaped by ecology, letting nature regenerate and support the rapidly grow urban population. So again, a dialogue between nature and our planning directions. Connected employment, compact cities. So you see how ecology shape, but then again, the programmatic shape as well, in terms of what you build and how you connect to those infrastructures. You have this idea of half wild, yeah, which is pretty cool. 50% of the ecosystems and its waters are protected. And then you have scaled transit by regions connected by local rail, bus lines, and high-speed trains. So I'm going to go quickly. One more example. Now you got the spiel. It's something similar. Yeah, this is Seagull Island Master Plan, also by SIM. This is a resilient hydrological network for Seagull Island, located in the Pearl River Delta near Guangzhou, China. And again, this being one of the few places in the Delta untouched by urban development, this master plan offers strategies to strengthen its natural assets, reverse degradation, and create sustainable districts. Focuses on 6 core components. Again, I chose things that you can later use as examples: water, ecology, new economies, agriculture, communities, and mobility. And then you see a larger master plan of this solution with all the 12 zones and districts as part of the island, and a couple of renderings of this, again, very well married kind of city and ecology. I'm going to go a bit closer to home now with San Diego, Tijuana. Again, I'm San Diego, California. That's in my office here at New School. Tijuana is like 20 minutes away, very close by. It's interesting for you to see this because if you can see now the image, you see the red line, that's the border. The northern part is San Diego, the lower part is Tijuana. Look at the size of these two cities. Pretty big difference. But if you think about it, yeah, the the population in Tijuana is much larger. So it's an incredible density and poverty right there. And this is what we call this Tijuana border condition region. This is a zone of conflict that divides not just two cities, but two countries, and in a sense, two worlds. So it's something we deal with. It's one of our current issues that we're trying to understand further and be part of solutions. In 2024, we will have the San Diego Tijuana Design Capital here, and we're very excited about it and are working already at projects and solutions that we want to present to the world in this huge event. But again, as you can see, this area offers a dramatic microcosmos of the conflicts and deprivation that globalization has inflicted on the world's most vulnerable populations. So just to see a few images of this border condition. Again, we're very, very close to it right now. Obviously, you have the wall, yeah, that created a lot of upheaval. Now, as part of that, citizens' culture came up with provocative ideas by the border regions. As you can see in these coffins, also many people have died. So again, it's understanding this urban condition and understanding that the problems of the US are the problems of Tijuana, and the problems of, actually the problem of San Diego are the problems of Tijuana, and the problems of the US are the problems of Mexico. So to me, that's a very important thing that I wanted to bring to you, these proximities and these densities and tensions between two different cultures. Just a few examples. This is a small project in Tijuana, the Deportivo Second Tecate. It's basically an urban improvement program, you know, with a park and a vernacular construction that was used, an existing construction was used as retaining wall. Sorry, I went the other way. This is just, it's a small project. Again, I promised you I go from big to small, but it's a project that tries to connect people that live on both sides of the space, yeah, which was not possible prior this construction. And again, brings communities together. Another famous project by Teddy Cruz, a Guatemalan-born architect, very famous in San Diego, La Frontera Sanctuary in Tijuana. It's an idea of a humanitarian shelter, yeah, that it's bringing refugees together, showing them how to recycle San Diego waste material and build shelters in slow incremental stages. You can see some really cool solutions for that. So again, you use recycled material from San Diego to build those incredible shelters in Tijuana. Very innovative solution. And again, this also provides workshops to teach immigrants skills to complement their own structures. It's another way to see this micro scale of the neighborhood as the perfect laboratory for exploration. And now a few new school student work. I think I'm great in time. I have 4 minutes. I can do it. Thank you. So this is just a collage from this year's work. 90% of this work is from this year. One project is from a year before. This is a Master of Architecture thesis, Anthony Pena, trying to understand again complexities in the city. Here, I want to, before I go, to talk a bit about new school research space. I introduced this really quick in there, but this is a slide that shows you, as I talk about our students, how we care about pedagogy as research, that architectural schools must always embark on more exploratory agendas on both pedagogy and research. And I just wanted to connect to our school for a moment before showing you the student work examples and the way I see the school. Yeah, we have to choose emerging problems that are very critical. We have to build around faculty and students' interest. also local challenges, and to have our school as a home base for testing innovative ideas and a learn center for graduate students and scholars. For us, research is integral to all architectural activity. I'm particularly happy for our new president, Gisela Löhlein, because I have these slides made, I don't know, 7 years ago, and finally I hear again that research must be an integral part of what we do. And those are some examples of our projects before. So an example from a project in the master program this year, very interesting approach, is Plan Assaults by Alison Devlin. This is a project that looks and understanding the evolution of the American domestic landscape, ideas of past transgression, particularly against women, and how we can inform current solution for neighborhood and housing design. So this goes deep into post-domestic dwelling, social neighborhoods, you know, very complex cultural beliefs, political ideologies, and economic conditions. But this is a master thesis. So that's where it's going. You can see here some very interesting site analysis for these particular conditions and identification of the problem and a few solutions for these, you know, the investigation of the typical single family house and the neighborhood plan and solutions for it. And that's kind of the outcome of this particular thesis. That's an entire book with research and ending up in a solution. A much younger student project between Barrio Logan and East Village. This also goes south next to the border. Christian Mena. Here you can see an idea of a concept, small scale residential home project. The idea is a flexibility in the mini blocks that gives the user opportunities to use their space and home, craft, working, and business. But what's important in this project is that it has a vision for water management, waste, and water filtration systems. And here you can see a little bit this unexpected master plan. It's dense, but they are very clear, designated circulation, and actually 4 methods of circulation that connects the entire city and all the other facilities necessary for this to thrive. And a few a bit zoomed in axonometrics. Yeah, very interesting project, very young student. I always like this project, and I believe it goes a little bit into, you know, what's the future of live work spaces, particularly, again, this is a very poor community, and it's about smart densities. A few more images here, again, a project by the border, and a section trying to show all these features of energy, waste, solar, yeah, and water collection and filtration. One more, harnessing hurricanes. I'm going to go fast, but it talks for itself. We have devastating hurricanes. Again, this really dealing with a typical challenge, yeah. And here Joshua was using computational design as means for automatic the manipulation of form and generating fully parametric scripts to create these with very, very solid data. That's another thesis project. The idea is that you end up with a project that it's a recovery center that's specifically a result of this parametric study that fits in exactly that condition with that wind specifics and situation. And one more, and that's the last project, Midway Central Mobility Hub. So again, very different type projects in San Diego. This is going into the thesis that transportation is mainly dependent on fossil fuel automobiles, definitely in San Diego. This is Southern California, 95% of automobile users. So Ahmed is proposing a new transportation typology, catalyzing the shift to sustainable mobility. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea. And you can see some really great studies and site plans, understanding the entire circulation and vehicular and pedestrian in San Diego, a few other historical issues and what it means. Some of these final images of these projects and renderings for the mobility hub, very compelling section, and very cool floor plan that I love, site ground level plan. And that's basically the last image for Ahmed project. Yeah, a night vision master plan. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much for Professor Danina's splendid and cutting-edge lecture for us. I think you have made a full preparation for our summer school and your impressive and professional PowerPoint. And thanks again for your sharing. Yeah, I think everyone, every participants, if you have any question, you can use Q&A session or message board to raise and ask your question to Professor Danina.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm not sure. If you see any questions, let me know, because I'm not sure I'm looking in the right place. Okay. If not, I have a question. But I'm waiting.
Okay. Danina, this time is 11 o'clock in Beijing time. Maybe our students have never engaged in this lecture so late. So maybe
it's late. I know, and for me it's really early. So listen, I was thinking of a question that would be cool and simple. Like, is it expensive to put sustainable practices in place for such large projects and infrastructures? And I thought this is a question that will come up, because we have ideas and data and technology, and I have no doubt that our students can come up with some incredible solutions. But it's always that question, how much does it cost? This example in New York, it's again billions, no? So I came up with this answer because I thought, yes, it is expensive, but the cost is minimal in comparison with the benefits. Yeah. So creating a functional public transport network, it may be expensive, but the benefits are huge in terms of economic activity and quality of life and the environment. So I just thought of this as an important additional thought, because we have to all come together, and there is no price on our surviving and thriving together. Okay, so let's see. Oh, when I can see your research. So is this for me? Yes. Thank you. So I don't have real research in this. So I developed this lecture for you guys from scratch. It was actually really a great experience for me. I know a lot of these issues, but I never had a lecture on that. I taught environmental systems in very kind of focused topics on buildings. I talked about cities a lot, but Resilient Cities lecture, this is the beginning of my research. And unlike the student before that was a PhD student, I think, or professor, I just caught 5 minutes of it. I'm a professor of design. Yeah, I teach studio, I teach environmental systems. I don't teach urban design, but I know a lot about it and I learn a lot about it. I will share this presentation if you want as a PDF Yeah.
Yeah, I think two students raised some questions. You know, they need some minutes to think about the question. Yeah, I noticed.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. So let's see. Do I start with something, or do you want to point it to me? Okay. The first thing, what do you think about nature-based solutions for the sustainability and resiliency? Oh, I love them. I don't know if it is the only answer. I know that right now it's a very trending answer for at least 5+ years, and it's very attractive, and I think we can learn a lot from nature. But I am very open to the possibilities. I want technology to come into play even more. I think we are part of nature, but we are not nature, just we are human complex minds. And I believe there will be surprises coming from us as very intelligent entities. I know that nature is the most intelligent, but I believe I'm looking forward to the future question and the future solutions. And I don't think we know how it looks like yet. Okay, so let's see. But I do love nature and nature solutions. So let's see. In the part of the poverty and inequality is the picture of Morocco. Oh, I think so. Yes, I picked a few pictures related to, you know, just visual pictures related to poverty. But unfortunately, I don't have a title for all of them. I apologize. But it's definitely very telling with this little girl in the middle of this bad area. So I once made a plan about these slums on the sea. There is a severe contradiction between the huge population density and the living environment. The current situation is so complex. Do you think there is a good solution? So that's interesting. So you made a plan about the slums. So to me, slums are an informal solution. Yeah, it's unplanned, it grows naturally. The question, it is for sure a contradiction. If the slum grows anyway, to me, the question is, can we work with the slum? So yes, it is complex. I like where it's going. I would not go away from the slum. I wouldn't, so I wouldn't just erase the slum to design something else. I will try to work with the slum, understands its informality and its growth and the reason it grows, and understands if we can intervene acupuncturally to fix certain parts of it. I hope this makes sense. But I like that you're working on that direction. I think there's a lot to discover. Try to look at the slum from above a bit, understand that this is truly natural. It's growing based on certain forces. Understand what those forces are, because there is something there. When you look from above, it's starting to become beautiful and connected. Yeah, if you understand those connection and kind of harvest them, maybe those are points of growing ideas. And I don't know if fixing the slum, but making the slum work, definitely make it healthy. I need to see it, but it's a very cool question.
Okay, Daniela, I think last question. I think more and more questions is appeared in the message.
Oh yeah, because this is all I saw. Maybe another thing to say about the slumming in general to all of you. Last thing, this idea of systems theory. I was talking to some of my colleagues in the past. I like mathematics, and I studied mathematics for a moment before architecture. But it's not just about math. It's about biology, holistic thinking, ecology, and systems. And I think look into system theory, look into topology. If you're interested in math, sea of connections you can have. Yeah, can be math, can be biology, but slums are very interesting for that reason, because there is something going on there. It's chaotic, but then again, it has some order, and that's very interesting to discover. Where is the order coming from? I'm going to leave it to that. Thanks.
Okay. I think thank you so much again for Danina's lecture and detailed answer for our participants. Yeah, you know, our university have just signed a new contract with New School of Architecture and Design. Yeah, I think we are now preparing a new Sino foreign cooperation program in the near future. I think we would like to deeper our cooperation in the future. Yeah, I think after the epidemic ends, we would like to invite you to China and Beijing University of Architecture and Civil Engineering to give a lecture and go on a deeper cooperation in various aspects. Okay, thank you again, Danina. Okay,
absolutely. You're very welcome here anytime. And
yeah.
Very good. Is there another question? Let's see, one more question.
Okay.
Oh, that's a very good question. So in developing countries, one of the biggest issues in urban developments includes demolition and replacement. Do you have any suggestions on how the locals that may not be as educated can be convinced to agree with the project? Well, one suggestion is you need to raise awareness and communicate the issue to the communities. That's an obligation. Yeah. So basically, there are no suggestions. If you don't communicate and explain and work with the communities, there is no way for them to understand. So once you raise awareness, you can have a dialogue, and the community can be involved in the changes. How to do that? There you can have local non-profit organizations. You as students, in fact, if you're ever part of a more real project like this, should be reaching out. We do this a lot with our students and professors, reaching out to these communities and try to create this dialogue, bring the community to the school to show them our ideas and projects. So again, connection, communication, raise awareness, respect the community, and yes, don't just demolish without trying to talk to them. I absolutely agree. Beautiful question. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, I think many students express their thanks and gratitude for you. Yeah, thank you.
It was a pleasure. I hope to meet you again. And if you have any questions, please ask them through your professor and I will get back to you. And I will send me an email, please, Mr. Huang Xing. Send me an email and I could send you back a PDF of this presentation.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, have a nice day, Danina.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Okay, every students, I think today's 3 lectures have ended this time. Let's meet tomorrow afternoon about 4 o'clock p.m. And thank you for ISPRS students, consultants, hardworking. Thank you, Leslie. And thank you, Sunny. Yeah, I think you are staying from the afternoon to the end, to the night. Thank you. That's me. Thank you, Sunny. Okay, bye-bye. See you tomorrow afternoon. Bye-bye, Nami. Thank you. Thank
you.
Bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
See you.